So there's two Mr. MB3 videos linked in the description. One of them is from August 31st, 2018. One of them is from June 10th, 2022. So the one from August 31st, 2018 is nearly 4 years old. It says 3 years ago in the title and the description and stuff, but I got a little more specific. The other one says 1 month ago, but it was about 6 weeks ago. So clear back in August of 2018 is when I first started noticing that the moon has turned in the sky. And obviously so did other people, and that's why they sent Mr. MB3 these videos, and he made a video kind of downplaying it. More recently, June 10th, he made a video acknowledging that there's something to it. He's like, so you guys let me know if you're noticing this. And I noticed it. I noticed it five or 6 days ago. I've got the video that shows you noticed it 4 years ago. So yes, Mr. MB3 is an agent. You can see this by holding these two videos regarding the rotation of the moon side by side, comparing and contrasting how he acts in the first video. It's titled, "Has the moon turned 90 degrees or is it just your perspective?" And he kind of downplays it and said, well, you know, the lighting of the moon is always changing and the moon's always changing places in the sky. So, you know, it could just be your perspective. In the more recent video, he acknowledges that there's something to it. A lot of people are noticing it. Those were his words. A lot of people noticing it. Let me know if you notice it. I noticed it 4, 5, 6 days ago. So yes, not only is he a soft disclosure agent when it comes to all those UFOs he's showing you, he is a soft disclosure agent for the moon turning in ways that it never has before. Just keep this in mind. When I was looking through those videos that I've made previously about the moon turning in the sky and the way that it does, in order to grab that video link from the 4-year-old Mr. MB3 video, there was also a video link I had included in there called Moon on Its Back by Logic Before Authority, who made a video referencing that, but he has since wiped out all of his own videos. Talk about that another time in reference to becoming the new Illuminati, like I've said you are many times. Like I referenced initiating that girl at the hot springs, tell her, yeah, baby, I can show you some things, but you'll never be the same. You got to really want it. Regarding Fernando asking me who buys the most helium and me having the answer to that question, it was like a secret handshake question to see if you're really initiated. But in the most recent Mr. MB3 video where he shows you the moon, he uses some of the same verbiage that I have. In one part he says it looks like it's lit across the equator instead of vertical. And then in another part he says it looks like it's the top half that's illuminated instead of the right half. Which, by the way, I may have been mistaken. It's been so long since I've even thought of this. I think it actually rotates counterclockwise instead of clockwise. But a month ago, when I saw this video by Mr. MB3 citing the moon and how it's moving in ways that it never has before, and acknowledging and validating, it didn't even faze me. I didn't even make a video regarding it. I didn't even feature it and show it and pass it along to you. Because I'm so desensitized over 4 years, I'm punch drunk already. So what? Yeah, everyone knows the moon's spinning in way. Oh, they don't? Just this little group right here? So now let's talk about how you're the new Illuminati. Segueing from what I said in my last video, Mac Daddy Plasma or whatever, how you could leverage knowledge about plasma into a pickup line. Or you could also leverage some of that knowledge into a password. I'll just cover Fernando real quick since we're on that. The other day, Fernando, guy at work, who's into the conspiracy theories. I don't even like calling it that, but whatever, don't matter. Truth or conspiracy theory or whatever. And he asked me, we were just having some candid conversation. He says, you know who is the biggest owner of helium? Because we were talking about hot air balloons that go up right here in near Park City. And then we were watching them go up. I was pointing them out. I was like, would you go in one? A hot air balloon? No, I'm afraid of heights. I said, well, then how are you going to get over the ice wall? He's like, oh, there's a little path in the middle. I was like, oh, okay, so you'll take a boat? I was like, how are you going to get over the ice wall to see what's on the other side of the flat earth? He's like, oh, there's a little tunnel, a pathway in the middle that I can take. Oh, okay, you'll take a boat then? Yeah, all right. And so since we were talking about hot air balloons, and he was talking about the dirigibles, Zeppelins. He's like, why don't they use those no more? I was like, yeah, exactly. Why don't they? Because of that one accident, the Hindenburg. Oh, the humanity! By the way, that was all dubbed in afterwards. Yeah. For the purposes of the psychological impact, so that we can reference that one accident as a reason why we can't do these Zeppelins no more. That's where the Zeppelins went. Problem? Reaction, solution, get rid of the Zeppelins. That's what that was. Why did they dub in the humanity? To get the reaction. So they could then implement the solution. Guess what? They probably also created the problem. To get the Hegelian dialectic. So these are words, Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. When Fernando asked me, you know who owns the most helium? And I said, NASA. He goes, yeah. I said, yeah, they're the largest consumer of helium. He goes, yeah, they also own that shit too. Which makes sense. I didn't think about that, but it would totally make sense. If you're the largest consumer of helium, why would you be buying it from a third party who's giving you a markup on the manufacturing cost? Why wouldn't you just buy the manufacturing facility if you're the largest consumer of it? You would then become the producer of it. So when he asks me, you know who the largest consumer, who the largest owner of helium is, that's like a secret password question to see if you're really initiated. And with the jewels of knowledge that all of you that have been watching this Plasma Fire channel have regarding just plasma fire, let alone the black dot craft, the sun tunnel, the airborne aircraft carrier, and all the rest, just the plasma fire. There could be questions asked of you in which you could respond in such a way that no one else out there would respond. And those questions could range, you could formulate the question in any different way you want. Put a little thought into it, you could probably come up with a multi-layer filter in one question to filter out what degree you are of understanding, smart enough to see it, courageous enough to say it, and have you said it prior to anyone else. Anyway, so regarding becoming the new Illuminati, and that scenario where I bust a Mac and say, hey baby, I can show you the world. But you got to know that you're never going to go back to your old life once I show you the real world that's around us. Well, what do you mean? Something you missed on your way in as you walked in here and as you drove in. Something you didn't see and something none of your friends see. And once I point it out to you, you'll never be the same. That takes us to a point where once you point it out to her, and she's like, wow, are you sure it's not just lightning strikes? And she goes through all the first time questions. And she rapidly goes, in this theoretical scenario, she rapidly goes through the process of realizing that all the governments around the world and all the institutions within those countries, the media, fire department, police department, educational institutions, all of them from top to bottom, social media, worldwide, is in on the cover-up of the plasma fire. And like I said, she's got to do a crash course to really get through a lot of information in a really compressed amount of time, realizes that this plasma fire is so ubiquitous, so everywhere you look, you could throw a rock and hit a mountain of evidence. Literally, a mountain of evidence. So she realizes that it's everywhere. And then she realizes that the firemen are giving you bullshit excuses. Oh, cigarette butt caused that one. They said a cigarette butt caused the fire at my neighbor's house. The telephone poles with straight line burns on them and the square post with the straight line burns proves that's not the case. Anyway, once she gets to that understanding, she realizes there is a whole large group of people that know about plasma fire and are in on the cover-up. And there's an even bigger group of people that aren't in on the cover-up because they're not part of one of these institutions. But they recognize, they know about plasma fire, and they know about the organizations and institutions worldwide that are covering it up. Or at least not covering it and disclosing it to the public. So she now has two phenomenon her mind's wrapped around two phenomenon. One, the trees are burning from the inside. Two, there's a worldwide orchestrated, coordinated effort to not talk about it. And three, this is a separate phenomenon, that the general public is blind regarding this subject matter, and no amount of censorship can account for their blindness. Now, this is where my audience doesn't like to talk about this, because they then become the subject matter of discussion. And I've said a bunch of times, even greater phenomenon to me now is not that the trees are burning from the inside, it's that still no one else can see it. That is a greater phenomenon to me than the trees burning on the inside. But no one wants to talk about that because that means we're talking about you. But for the grace of Jeff, there go I, just as obliviously unaware as everyone else. And since you have had the ability to see, I once was blind, but now I can see, what have you done with it? If you were proud of what you've done with it since you've had this knowledge available to you, you would be eager to have that conversation. The reason you're not so eager to have that conversation is because you don't feel so good about what it is you've done. And once upon a time when I was expressing my frustration regarding this, one of my subscribers chimes in and gives me a how dare you. And those videos are now titled Refried Tiger Dog and Roasted Tiger Dog. We had a Tiger Dog roast. Because he took it personal as if I was speaking directly to him. And if the shoe fits, wear it. His wife ended up bringing him a piece of plasma firewood from up there in Canada, and it was like a hostage video. It's like she handed him the piece and said, "Here, Tiger Dog, you make a plasma fire video or you're not getting any." She was standing just off camera while he, tried to go about making a plasma fire video without mentioning the one source, which is the one place where he gets everything he knows about plasma fire. He tries to make a plasma fire video without mentioning Jeff Snyder. Oh yeah, he mentioned it and mumbled off real quick about some other people are talking about it too. And the working theory is, who are these other people? I made a video telling him, dude, your wife knows the difference between that charade and that facade that you just put on as a presentation and the reality. The reality is, if you were being honest, your ultimate priority was to keep from mentioning Jeff or telling anyone about Jeff's channel, but still somehow make a plasma fire video with that piece of wood that your wife brought to you. She can see the difference between reality and that presentation that you made. Anyway, so since we're on it, let's talk about logic before authority. I gotta grab a drink. These are the only people that have seen plasma fire, okay? That, like I say, the bigger phenomenon to me is that still no one else sees it. And even the people that do see it, like the viewers of this channel, don't seem to be interested in doing anything with it. So let's talk about logic. Because when I went to go grab that MB3 Moon video from nearly 4 years ago, Along with it, in the description of that video, was one titled Moon on Its Back by Logic Before Authority. And since then, he has erased all of his videos because he was afraid of them getting censored, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So he's wiped out all of his videos, took them all down himself. But back when I was demonstrating all the mountains of evidence of plasma fire all around us for the last 4 years, he was showing his audience the peripheral information, details, and understanding about plasma fire, specifically about directed energy weapons. Including, I remember from one of his videos, a quote by Nikola Tesla that says, "I can place the power of the sun anywhere on the face of the earth at any time." Which coincides with a caller that in Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis that talked about solar magnetic amplification causative configurator that can control the timing, duration, intensity, and location of a solar flare, or the effects of a solar flare. So, Logic Before Authority would even show his viewers that as these fires would start up, the overhead satellite cameras that you can watch show a burst of light coming from where the fire then becomes a fire and a pillar of smoke starts to come from it. Right at the beginning, you can see a burst of light. But he never told his audience where you can find the library that documents the mountains of evidence for the past 4 years. And if he did so at this point, his audience would know that he's a fraud. Once, he accidentally told the truth. That's what they call a Freudian slip. When I recorded my first live plasma fire video, which was last summer, 2021, I posted it, and within 5 minutes, he mirrored it on his channel. His conscience got to him. That's what that was. Accidentally told the truth, made sure to never do it again. Why? Sure, he could give you any answers he wants. I've blocked him from commenting on this channel. But I'll tell you why I think, because I've said many times for a long time, don't tell me what you believe. I'll watch your actions and decide for myself what you believe. And I think I got a pretty good idea of why he believed it would be better for him to erase all of his videos, and why up until the point where he erased all of his videos, he never showed his audience where the library of plasma fire knowledge is, so that they could come drink for themselves from that cup. So he could keep collecting donations. That's the bottom line, because the things I say here run contrary to the indoctrination, the mind control that the general demographic of his audience are under. Mainstream biblical Christianity. And a lot of the things you come here to this channel and hear are very different than that mainstream milquetoast, lukewarm Christianity that he appeals to. So the one time he ever showed them any of my work was a single live plasma fire video, the first live plasma fire video, and he mirrored it within 5 minutes of me putting it up because he got a guilty conscience. His conscience started eating away at him. And this came to me the other day with a fury and a passion, and I'm sure I could just freehand it, so I guess I will. But it's all written in these notes where I texted myself these understandings. So I'll just go check the notes to see if there's anything I missed after I give it to you straight. Because I think time's up for you, Logic, and those half-truths you told will afford you nothing. Like it says in AA, they got this saying that said, half measures availed us nothing. We looked for an easier, softer, or gentler path, but half measures availed us nothing. And those half-truths that you told will avail you nothing. Because all those people that you led astray by concealing from them, that's called a lie of omission, where you just leave that part out. And if your viewers were to see what a big part it was that you left out, that you knew about, but just didn't want to tell them about, they would see you as a fraud. Why did you keep doing that? So you could keep saying, break some bread with me, fellow brothers and sister Christians. Send it to my PayPal, Venmo, Patreon, Cash App. And you made a way of life. Your income was dependent upon that indoctrination. And the things that I say over here break the spell. But you were relying on that magic spell to try and leverage those keywords, to try to extract some money from them. Oh, break some bread with me. And now, all of those people that you led astray are going to experience the consequences of not knowing anything about plasma fire to the degree and the way in which and the quality and the quantity of knowledge they would have had access to if you would have told them the truth. Instead, you led them astray, told them half-truths, because you were afraid they might come over here and hear something that doesn't fit with that programming and that mind control, and that some of them might say, oh, Daniel, how dare you? That's not a real Christian. He doesn't say the same gobbledygook nonsense we do. And then your funds might dry up. Or maybe you were looking out for them because you were afraid they were soft-minded people that would believe whatever they heard. So you were protecting them from things they might hear. Regardless of what your answer is, you led them astray by telling them half-truths. They will all now experience the consequence of being kept in the dark. At this 11th hour, it's too late. If you were to show them the extent of the plasma fire library that I've amassed, and the fact that you knew about it the whole time, they would see you as a fraud. And rightfully so. And so now what do you think you deserve for that behavior, Daniel? What do you think should be your just reward for having led them astray? Got a cop behind me. I need to tone it down for a second. I can give you another reason that he may have erased his channel. Because when COVID hit, he swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. He was making videos crying about all these poor people that are getting locked in their apartments and it's getting welded shut and they're lighting the buildings on fire. He was taking a single image of 10 body bags, let's say 10 body bags laid out on a block. Multiply that times 4 because there's 4 sides to every block. Multiply that by how many blocks there are, and this is how many bodies are laying in the streets of Shanghai or whatever. At the same time, while I'm sending him coronavirus crisis actor videos saying, dude, pump the brakes. The fuck, none of this is even halfway believable. Before that, in that 2018 area, he made a video titled, I received an eye upgrade. Because he had received an eye upgrade. Somewhere along the way, he lost it. Probably because the things he started seeing, he knew that if he was saying it, remember the 2 criteria, smart enough to see it, courageous enough to say it. And I give you the first criteria. You don't even have to be smart enough to see it for yourself. I point it out to you. Likewise, when you are given the eyes to see, you don't have to be smart enough to see it. You can suddenly see things in a different way than you've ever seen them before. And some of the stuff I was saying while I was seeing, some of the things I was seeing does not mesh with the indoctrination of the mind control program of mainstream canonized Christianity. And that's probably why he gave up his eyes to see, because he didn't like some of the things he was seeing, and he knew if he were to say anything about it, he'd be alienated and ostracized by those good Christians around him that he depends on for his income through donations. So, he made the video, I've received an eye upgrade, clear back then. But he made some choices that reflect his outward standards of behavior, reflect those underlying principles, and those underlying principles reflect the underlying priorities of what's more important, A or B. And he made some choices along the way that led to him having the standards of behavior of never showing his audience the truth about plasma fire. And that also led to him erasing all of his videos. Maybe because he didn't want them seeing that he bought the whole thing hook, line, and sinker right from the beginning. And it took me and some others quite a while saying, dude, what the fuck? Do you not get it? Can you not see? And finally he's making videos, all right, send me your proofs. Everyone send me your proofs that this is all just made up. Well, there was another content creator who fell for it also, called Final Messages, Last Messages. I think it's Last Messages. And then once she realized she'd been duped, she made a mea culpa video. I think it's a husband and wife team. Anyway, they made a mea culpa video and then didn't make another video for 6 months to a year. Daniel? Oh, let's just pretend that didn't happen and keep going and never fucking make note of it. Because how can he be their fearless leader with eyes to see when it's obvious he got taken for a ride? And if it weren't for others like us that still have the eyes, he'd still be riding. So, some of his other half-truths are good, are worth watching. His Iris World video, I used part of that recently, but those half-truths will avail you nothing because of the people that you led astray by concealing from them the massive amounts of evidence and proof and truth that surrounds them. All they would have had to do is go outside and look in their local area where they remember having a fire, saw it on the news, saw the smoke rising in the sky, and go look for themselves. And then I wouldn't still be the expert on this subject. I don't want to be the expert. I want other people to look at it and think for themselves and use their own senses too. That's what this is for. It is to process people out of the mental enslavement that we are in. And the way to do that is to get them to use their own senses and exercise their own thought processes. And that's what they are forced to do when they see the plasma fire and they realize the news isn't telling them anything about it. They are left to their own devices, their own senses, their own perception, their own information processor. But Christianity has an aversion to that. No, don't do your own thinking. No, don't think for yourself. The thinking has been done. The prophet has spoken. So it doesn't matter what other truths you may have delivered. It's that big one that you kept from them that's going to cost you dearly. Now imagine, now that you've drank from that cup and you made your living off of that mind control indoctrination by reciting those same trigger words. Break some bread with me, fellow Christians. You reinforced that programming because you benefited from it personally. Now, imagine yourself waking up in a world. Hold on, I got to fix it. Imagine waking up one day and you have a vertical slit pupil. And you know those knuckle-dragging troglodytes are going to kill you with a quickness. And think they're doing God's work. Think they stand on the moral high ground while they're doing it. Like that guy that used a spear gun and put a spear through his 2 children's chest, ages 1 and 3, because his wife had infected them with that serpent seed DNA of the seed of Cain. You wake up one day and find you've got vertical slit pupils, and you know they are ready and willing to commit genocide based on pupil shape that quick. And here's how you know, just a side note, why is it that the Christians, the non-religious, and the conspiracy theorists and normies, they all agree on this one thing: reptilians are evil. How are they such unanimous, uniform conformity there? Groupthink. Why are there none who are not human supremacists? So, imagine one day, Daniel, you wake up in a world and you have those vertical slit pupils. What chance you would have at convincing any of your good Christians that you're not evil? This ain't the first time I've spoken of this. I've asked people many times, like in the video Kygo Stole the Show, where they have an ETI crash land. And they got dispatch going, okay, ETI parties are good to go. I repeat, ETI parties are good to go. So that the ETI can run over and blend in with a bunch of people that are dressed up like ETs. So that those knuckle-dragging troglodytes, just the general average good Christians, don't destroy him immediately. And then eventually the authorities show up, of course, to kick in the door. But in that music video, love perseveres. And I've asked you guys, would you put on a pair of contacts to make you look like you have those vertical slit pupils, to protect the innocent from the knuckle-dragging troglodytes? So, imagine yourself waking up in a world where everyone is reptilian now, but you know yourself on the inside to be a human being. But that if you reveal the truth about what you know yourself to be on the inside to these others, they will tear you apart. Soft-minded people, taking a hardline stance on things they don't understand, do that kind of thing. So your first instinct would be maybe to keep real quiet about the fact that you know you're really a human being inside and you're just a lizard on the outside. And then you would want to find others like yourself, but you got to be real careful about going about finding them. Because if you just ask them directly and they're not, they're going to tear you up. And even if they are, they might get nervous and tear you up anyway, just to keep their good standing status within the membership of the surrounding community. It's nice to know my kind will be on my side. I don't believe the hype, and you know you're a terrible sight, but you'll be just fine. Just don't believe the hype. And at the end of, that's 21 Pilots' Hype. They also have a song, Heathens. The very last lyric says, now they're outside ready to bust. It looks like you might be one of us. What is this us they're referring to when they say you might be one of us? What is this kind that they're referring to when they say it's nice to know my kind will be on my side? And that part about you know that you're a terrible sight, but you'll be just fine, just don't believe the hype, is the scenario I'm trying to get Daniel to imagine, that now that you've reinforced and benefited from that indoctrination, rather than, like me, trying to break some of it by saying, hey, how about you consider wearing some contacts to protect the innocent from the soft-minded people taking a hardline stance on things they don't understand? No, instead you reinforced all of that propaganda, that mind control, that dogma, and that doctrine. Because if they came over to this channel, he might break the spell. He has a way with words, and he's convincing and persuasive and charismatic. And I can't let these soft-minded Christians be exposed to his words. So I'm going to keep that stone-cold truth of the trees burning from the inside by the billions and trillions that he has in that library over there. I'm going to keep that truth from them because of what they might hear over there that might break the spell. So, Daniel, what do you think you deserve as your just reward for what you've done? I suggest you pray to God and ask that you not receive that just reward, because if it is just tenfold what you've done after leading those people astray, and now they will all experience the consequence of not knowing anything about plasma fire. And as such, there will be consequences, by the way. It's kind of a big deal. It's kind of a filtration process here on the consciousness farm. And the difference between those that can see it and know about it are separated and filtered from those that can't see it and don't know about it. And that's what I was referring to at the beginning of this video, where the girl who I initiate from the hot springs, suddenly, in a very rapid succession, processes all this information real quick and realizes not only are the trees burning from the inside, there's a large group of people who know about it, and a large group of people who are orchestrating and coordinating a cover-up or a lack of coverage, because that cover-up does not account for the millions of people that pass these millions of trees every day and can't see it. So you can't blame the cover-up for the fact that they still have a veil over their eyes. That's a separate issue. Hold on. Ugh. This thing keeps rolling around on the floor. So, that's what I mean when I say that all those people are now going to experience the consequences of knowing nothing about plasma fire, when they would have had the opportunity to separate themselves and distinguish themselves and differentiate themselves in order that they might be able to answer a question like what Fernando asked me about helium, except about plasma fire. But none of them can, because it was more important to you to keep picking their pockets for donations, and you were afraid some of those donations might dry up. Unless you have a better reason that you kept them in the dark that you'd like to share with us. That's too late, because I already blocked you from commenting on this channel. When someone demonstrates that level of hypocrisy, why do I care to hear what they have to say? I'll include the link in the description of this video where I sent Daniel a $1,000 check and it got sent back to me. Tried to bribe that motherfucker into telling the truth. And God said, nope, nope. Sent me my check back. Or do you think that wasn't God? So, you really need to do some soul searching, Daniel, because it's pretty fucking obvious that I am touched by an angel. Yeah, I may be the prophet of doom. I may be the harbinger of doom. That's not up to you to decide. Now is it? What truth to offer people when calling yourself a truther? That's why they say the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Because people have these real clever ways of giving partial truths. But the magnitude of the truth that you withheld from your audience isn't just kind of a minor detail that we can, use nuanced words and kind of create a mental loophole and perform some mental gymnastics to get around. There's no getting around that. The consequences of not knowing anything about plasma fire, there will be consequences. That is part of the filtration process that you denied them access to. Sealing their fate, keeping them on the compound of the slave plantation, of the mental slavery that you have in common with them in order that you could leverage those trigger words to extract money from them. What do you think your just rewards ought to be, Daniel? So, right now, I'd say there's, I don't know, let's just say 20 guys at work who now know about plasma fire, who didn't know about it a couple weeks ago. So right now, they still have the, I was processing it, I was digesting it, I hadn't done anything with that information yet because I was still wrapping my mind around it. But here in a couple more weeks, you'll still be wrapping your mind around it. Here in a couple more months, you'll still be digesting it. And here in a couple years, you'll still be sitting on it without having done anything with it. And you'll continue your life thereafter the same way you did prior to that point of learning about the end of the world. Because it is the end of the world as you know it, instantly, if you accept what you're being shown. This is the end of the world where there's only one world and we all live in the same world. The end of the world as you knew it, where there's only one world and we're all in the same world. And proof that those truthers were right, that there is a small group of people who know a lot more about this world than the rest of us and control us through mind control, through the power brokers that they have inserted in all of these institutions of media, higher education, politics, police force, fire department, you name it, music industry, TV industry, right? All those things that the conspiracy theorists pointed toward and said, yeah, there's a secret society behind that curtain of people that really pull the strings. With plasma fire and the 4 years of documentation of it, and seeing how widespread it is, this takes that secret society from a speculation to a proven existence. And once you realize there's plasma fire, you also realize there is a secret society orchestrating the, I don't even like to use the word concealment or cover up, the lack of coverage. They're not broadcasting it. They're not announcing it. So, what was previously speculative on the part of the truthers, talking about these shadowy organizations that rule the world from behind closed doors, that went from speculative to proven with plasma fire. Proven. All the governments are keeping their citizens in the dark by just not announcing it. But again, you can't blame the fact that they're still in the dark on government censorship or media censorship or any of the rest. There is a veil over their eyes. There is a willful ignorance they demonstrate when they pass these trees by the millions. And don't talk about it around the water cooler. Nothing could stop them from spreading the word if they themselves were willing to see it and say it. Those are the two criteria by which I've been looking for a few good men, haven't found a single one. I cannot name a single person who's watched this channel that sticks out amongst the rest who didn't respond the same exact way as everyone else. Not a single one. So if I have, 24 tickets to ride, 24 uniforms to fill, I can't think of a single person who I'd issue that first ticket to ride to. They've all responded exactly the same way. So I don't expect anyone at this workplace that I've now made some revelations to, I expect them to respond the same way that I've seen everyone else respond over the last 4 years. At the beginning of this, as soon as I realized what it is I've stumbled upon, like the saying says, occasionally men will stumble across the truth. Most of the time they pick themselves up and hurry off as if nothing ever happened. Well, I didn't do that. And I assumed that everyone else wouldn't do that either. I assumed as soon as I post my first plasma fire video, it's going to go viral. And within a week or two, within a day or two, Everyone's going to be talking about this. No one will even remember where the first plasma fire video came from. 4 years later, here we are. Still no one knows. I'm a one-man secret society. Fully initiated Illuminati one-man secret society. And when you learn about plasma fire, so this is the differentiation between the one-worlders and the multiple worlders. The one-worlders are the normies that think, oh, there's only one world and we all live in it, and there is no such world within a world that you conspiracy theorists talk about when you refer to these secret societies. And now we know there is proof that there is at least two worlds. Because you went from being in the one world where no one knows anything about any sort of plasma fire to knowing about plasma fire, and that it's so ubiquitous there is a orchestrated, coordinated silencing or a non-announcement, a cover-up, whatever you want to call it, concealment. So you know not only are the trees burning from the inside, but there's so much of it going on. There's a large group of people that know about the trees that are burning from the inside and don't say anything about it. Shh. Shh. Like David Bowie. Shh. Because this is how we separate. This is how we filter out those secret societies. It's a secret that I've been yelling from the rooftops, trying to get anyone who will listen to listen. But there is something different about us, because all those people went about their life as if it's not happening. They acted the same thereafter discovering plasma fire as they did prior to. Therefore, they are acting as if it's not happening. So, plasma fire is a filtration device on the consciousness farm. That is self-evident truth. That there is a difference between those that can see it and those that can't. And that difference is one of consciousness. And it's not just a minor minutia of difference. It's right at the core, fundamental foundation of your being. Because if you're able to blow off plasma fire and go about life as if whatever was your priority a minute ago is still your priority, that's a level of consciousness that is demonstrating your underlying priorities and principles through your standards of behavior. And if you maintain your same priorities and principles and standards of behavior after this is entered in as a variable into your worldview and self-image, and you do not factor this in, it shows something about who you are, at the very core of who you are. If this doesn't reorder your priorities, what would? The answer is nothing. That's why it has been put right there in front of us in so many places. It is for the purposes of seeing who will notice and who won't, and the effect that it has upon them when they do notice. So you've all been given an opportunity, and the offer has been shunned. But there's multiple offers within every offer. You've taken the offer to, pretend it's not happening. You accepted that offer. You were made that offer to, here, let me show you this, and then you can go about your life, pretend it's not happening. You accepted that offer. The plasma fire is a consciousness farm filtration device that is separating us out into petri dishes of a culture of consciousness of others who are like ourselves. And when you're asked those questions that you can answer now, like a fucking secret password, like who owns all the helium? Only because you've been initiated do you know it. NASA. Likewise, there are many of ways that a question can be formulated around plasma fire, to which you will be able to easily answer. But none of Daniel's audience are even going to have the chance, because he withheld that from them, making sure that they retain their ignorance. He made that choice for them. They probably would have all done it themselves anyway, judging by the reaction of all the other people out here, they would probably engaged in willful ignorance, but it was their will and their choice that you took. Didn't even give them the opportunity to demonstrate a level of cognitive dissonance that it takes to be able to carry on with life thereafter and not miss a beat. That's how it's a filtration device. It gives plenty of people the opportunity to show how self-absorbed they are and impenetrable the facade and the shell of their psyche is. If this doesn't penetrate and reorder your priorities, nothing ever would. If you're able to engage a level of cognitive dissonance when it comes to plasma fire, you're demonstrating that you are outside of the fit to survive category. Even in the wild, they do not disregard a clear and present danger that is of the magnitude of plasma fire without dying. And thus, the herd is thinned and survival of the fittest carries on. We're only surviving because something is preventing us from the consequences of our own actions. Something's carrying our weight for us. Because we're demonstrating that we're not fit to survive when we're capable of a level of denial, the likes of which we are seeing demonstrated, that revolves around plasma fire. How many of them do you think wouldn't have gotten the vax if they'd have known about plasma fire? Doesn't that reorder your priorities? Doesn't that break you out of your denial and know that these institutions that aren't telling you anything about plasma fire aren't on your side? So when they come saying, here, we got a solution, roll up your sleeve, you'll say, a solution? How is that a solution to the plasma fire? What? Huh? Oh, that's right, you didn't know. But if your audience would have been given the opportunity to know about plasma fire and then see that the institutions are in on a coordinated, orchestrated, lockstep, singing the same tune, hear no fire, see no fire, smell no fire, they would have lost all trust in those institutions. And by the time COVID came along, they would have had an immune system to the propaganda that says authorities say this and peer pressure says you should that. Peer pressure from these blind people that can't see plasma fire has no effect on someone who can see it. Pressure from the authorities that are concealing plasma fire from everyone has no effect on the person who can see it. And if you would have revealed it to your audience, they would have had that choice. They would have had a mental and emotional and a spiritual immune system against peer pressure and authority, because they would see that neither of them mean anything in the face of plasma fire, which has revealed their true character. Both the peers that would pressure them are blind, and the authorities that would pressure them are fraudulent. The lie of omission that they are all engaged in by not saying anything to the public about plasma fire is the same lie of omission that Daniel Alexander Cannon perpetuated on his audience for 4 years now. And it's now been so long, if you were to tell them now, they would all know you're a fraud immediately. But maybe you ought to take that risk, because just like plasma fire was followed by COVID, and anyone who saw plasma fire was immune to the pressure, the peer pressure and the authority pressure of COVID to go take this vax. Maybe there's something else coming along that they need to know about plasma fire for, just like the COVID gave them a immunity, just like Tool made that album called Fear Inoculum. So maybe you're just going to have to let them know that you're a fraud and accept the consequences of telling that truth in order to be able to tell the larger truth about plasma fire and let them in on what you've been concealing from them. Because at this point, you'd have to tell them the truth about plasma fire and the truth about why you kept that truth from them for 4 years. And that's a video I would be interested in seeing, if you got honest with yourself. Here's an opportunity for you. And just to help out a little bit with that thought process, I'm going to include links in the description that show one of my trips to the Springville Art Museum that shows the triumphant return of Christ.